Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm coming back with another tutorial today. Today I'm going to be going over Twixtor and how to use it within After Effects CS 5.5. This is going to be a really cool tutorial because I've never done Twixtor and it's one of my favorite plugins of all time for doing video work. And it's great for doing slow motion if you use it properly. And as you can see, we have this test here, and you can see this was all shot on the Canon 7D, which if you know cameras, it does 60 frames a second, which is pretty average. But you can see it looks like we shot that at about 2,000 frames a second and slowed it down to about 10% of what that is. And as you can see, there's not as much warping as some Twixtor videos. Then they just apply the plugin, and it looks really cool. And I worked pretty hard on this, and I think I found pretty good settings for Twixtor, but you should mess with it yourself. So you can get Twixtor from RE Vision Effects, and they, in my opinion, have the best slow motion plugin. I know that the Foundry makes Chronos, and I've used it once, but I didn't get as good of results as Twixtor. Maybe if I play with it a little bit more, but Twixtor is awesome. Basically, what it does is it interpolates frames for you, so it'll insert frames in between as if you shot it at the more frames per second. So if you took 60 frames per second video and slowed it down to 10 frames per second, that would give you about 1400 frames per second. I think I might be a little bit off there, but still, it's awesome, and it gives you really good results, especially if you use it correctly. So let's open up After Effects. You could do this in Premiere because Twixtor comes with several different software. You can get it for several different softwares. You can get it for Mac and Windows, I believe. Sorry, Linux users. So yeah, there is a couple things, a little bit of a prerequisite you need to know before you start using Twixtor. One, definitely shoot your footage at 60 frames per second if you can, because that'll give it the maximum frames to work with. Now, you can do more, but I would really not recommend you using it with less because you're not going to get very good results. And also, shoot it as high shutter speed as possible. You'll need a lot of light, but shoot at as high as the shutter speed as you can. I shot this at 1/4000, and that's as high as the Canon 7D will go without Magic Lantern. So let's just drag this into a new composition, and let me just close these other two out. Alright, so as you can see, just as a kind of reference point, if you look at this, you can watch this. If I play it back at like 40% slow motion, you can see it looks pretty smooth already. So, I just some food for thought there. You can see what it looks like at 40 frames a second. So yeah, that's the advantages of shooting at 60p. So I'm just going to trim this up so we don't have so much to work with Twixtor. And yeah, alright, let's just Alt N bracket here and drag it forward. Now, really the best way to shoot with Twixtor is against solid backgrounds, but as you can see, this is definitely not a solid background. There is a lot of trees and a lot of stuff going on, and it's really hard for Twixtor to sometimes do that. So that is why sometimes it might be smarter to go ahead and duplicate your footage and then double click on it and then roto your person out, so that way you can just apply Twixtor to them, and Twixtor won't get confused with the background. And that's just also some ideas there. I actually did that for a couple shots in the video, but it is a very time consuming process, and I would not recommend doing it if you're on a deadline. So just use Twixtor. But yeah, you could roto the person out, and that would give Twixtor a lot less to work with, and that would make it way better because most of the warping comes from the background, because you can see it gets confused here. And yeah, also try not to have too many things moving at the same time in the background. Like if you have, say if this car was zooming past, then it would be kind of confusing for Twixtor. Alright, so yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and move back to our composition here, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and make the composition a little bit longer. Make it 2 minutes long, because when we make it longer, believe me, your Twixtor will go on forever. So yeah, now I've seen some people go and just slow this down to 250% of the speed already, and I saw the VFX Pro do that, but I don't really understand why, because really it would make a little more sense for Twixtor to already just do slowing down itself. But I can kind of see if you did like 110%, so it's a little bit slower, and then Twixtor has a little bit more to like kind of look at. But then, yeah. So yeah, it's just all up to you at this point. You can either slow it down a little bit before you do it, and then you give Twixtor a little bit more to work with, but that's all up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Twixtor plugin by just typing it in our effects box here. And before I apply it, actually, I'm going to make a new solid. And if you apply Twixtor to a new solid, it actually is a lot more effective because it's easier to change the time. Alright, so let's apply Twixtor Pro to that solid, and we'll change the input frame rate to 59.94. That's perfect. And then I'm going to change the color source to my movie file or JPEG sequence, whichever one you want to do. Now the frame interpolation, I would do motion weighted blend, that's the best one. And then for motion blur compensation, you do inverse with smart blend. Motion vector is the best. Image prep, you could do this, it would help a little bit, but generally that's only if you shoot in really dark situations and your footage is horrible. So yeah, so now let's do this. Change the speed to, I'll do 10%. And now go down here to our movie file, go to time, enable timer mapping, and let's stretch this out. And so now if you can see, the guy's moving really slowly and it looks really good. So that's basically how you would just apply Twixtor. Now, sometimes you might not get the best effects and it'll look kind of weird with the warping, and I'm trying to find an example of where that warping would be. And yeah, so there's not a lot of warping because I'm not really moving very fast here, but it all looks pretty good. Now, one thing that would kind of help here is to do timer mapping, and if you don't know what that is, if you've ever seen the movie 300, they do a lot of timer mapping where it speeds up and slows down. And why you would want to do it here is if you get a lot of warping at one shot, like say if your actors' arms cross each other and the warping gets to be too much where it kind of takes away and distracts from the shot, you would want to kind of speed up past that warping so you could kind of trick the audience into thinking nothing's happening there, and that would really help a lot. So yeah, you can see that. So let's go ahead and I'll just show you how to do timer mapping within Twixtor. So let's go to our black solid over here, go to Effects, Twixtor Pro, and then we'll go to Source Control and go to, no, not Source Control, Output Control, sorry. And now I'll go to Speed. Now hit the stopwatch, and say if we want him to start moving off really fast at first, we'll speed up to about 100, 800, not 800, like 120%. And then go over here, have him play forward, and then let's say we want it to kind of slow down over here. We'll take the speed down to maybe 10% like we had originally, and then that will now be timer mapped effect, and that's pretty cool, I think. And since they're so close together, let's just zoom in here. Since they're so close together, you can see kind of what it does. And there's that, and then all of a sudden it gets really slow and it kind of freezes the time, and it looks really cool. Timer mapping is awesome, and it's one of my favorite effects, and it got kind of popularized by Zack Snyder and all those kind of guys doing 300. It's a very stylized effect. So yeah, I'm not going to timer map this shot, but you can if you need to. So yeah, with that in mind, it looks pretty good. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these layers and I'm going to pre-compose them and drag them into a new composition. And now we have this. And, whoops. Oh wait, Twixtor, I accidentally didn't change the speed back there. So I'm going to go back into this and effects. And I'm going to change this back to 10. Alright, now I'm going to pre-compose it again. So that way it's all as one layer, one file. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to color grade this, because color grading will definitely help us focus on the subject more, and it'll make the whole shot look a little bit better. The reason I'm going through this is because I kind of want to go through the whole process of what you would do with the shot. Instead of just showing you one effect, kind of bring it as together as a whole effect. Alright, so I'm going to use Colorista 2 for this, and there we go. Alright, so maybe I'll bring up my details in the shadows, just some basic stuff. definitely bring down my midtones to kind of adjust my contrast. And bring up my highlights. I'm gonna lower my highlights. Alright, so if we go back and forth between that, we can see what we've done there. And it looks pretty good. Alright. Now I'm going to cool down the shot a little bit by dragging the sliders over towards the blue. Drag one over towards the green. And drag one over towards the blue. No, the green. Alright, not bad. Now what I'm going to do is go and add a vignette to it. And it's just a misfire vignette. And now we can have that. Now what I like to do is, once Twixtor's applied and the effect isn't there anymore, because this will kind of confuse it if it's there, I like to apply Real Smart Motion Blur, because if you can see, if there's any kind of warping, it'll just kind of blur around the legs and the arms, because usually those tend to blur. And so, since those are moving the fastest, it'll just look like normal motion blur, and there won't be any warping, because motion blur looks way better than warping in my opinion, and it'll look more natural too. So if you have Real Smart Motion Blur, definitely do that, or you could use whatever other program or plugin you use for adding artificial motion blur. So there's that. Now go ahead, do the shot. It all looks good, but say you shot it at a really high ISO because you had to shoot at high shutter speeds. So just apply denoiser. That really tends to help, and it'll definitely enhance it. Now, since you're definitely going to be shooting in 720p instead of 1080, and your whole project might be finishing in 1080, you might want to interpolate the resolution up to a higher one, because most cameras that are at the prosumer and consumer level do not shoot at 1080 at 60 frames a second. Even the Canon C300, which is a $16,000 camera, only shoots at 1280 by 720, 60 frames a second. And so one plugin I really recommend for interpolating resolution is Magic Bullets, or not Magic Bullets, sorry, Red Giant's Instant HD. That is a great product, and it's within After Effects and Premiere, and you can just apply it, and it's really good. And I'll probably be doing a tutorial on that later, but here it is, Instant HD. So with that, we have our final image. It all looks pretty good. I really liked the way it came out. So yeah, Twixtor is awesome, and go out there, shoot some videos, make some cool slow motion stuff. Be sure to check out my other stuff on my channel, and I also am coming out with an After Effects training DVD, so if you want to subscribe to me, there will be an After Effects training DVD coming out. It'll be $20. It's going to be awesome, so stick around, and bye, have a great day.